Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host for this episode, Rachel Fiori, along with my co-hosts for this episode, Danny Morley and Ellie Lee. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
So we are going to dive into our topic, patriarchy and the elites who rule the world. And we're going to really dissect how these are connected. They are one and the same. And it's really critical for us to understand what's going on and why this global mass awakening is so critical and what we really need to focus on in order to help all of humanity. So here's the first thing that I want to start with. I want you to really understand what patriarchy actually is. Okay, world domination. It comes from domination energy. It is to dominate. It is world domination. Patriarchy turns men into monsters, women into slaves, the earth into a wasteland, and the collective consciousness into dumbed down, brainwashed, fearful puppets with no ability to divinely see truth or the power to rise up to do what's necessary to actually make the change and the changes that are desperately needed in our world. That's patriarchy. And part of the brainwashing is it's just men against women. That isn't even remotely. Now, there is a reason why in a patriarchal domination world, men try to take all the power and rule everything. We're going to get into that. Because in order for the elites that rule the world to actually stay in power and not transform and heal humanity, the earth, and the world, in order for that to not happen and they stay in power, they have to oppress, suppress, extinguish, if possible, divine feminine energy. Why? Because feminine energy is the energy that transforms. That's why. Period. End. It's that simple. You cannot heal anything. A trauma, you're not healing trauma with masculine energy. It doesn't exist. Doesn't fucking happen. You heal it through transformational energy, to learn alchemy, to learn to work with energy and actually transform the energy. That is feminine energy that transforms. So in order to transform this planet, in order to transform the collective consciousness, in order to transform a government, any government of the world, and especially the sick, corrupt, dysfunctional one of the United States of America, to transform that, we need to have feminine energy. Feminine energy is the alchemist. Do you understand? That sacred feminine energy transforms everything. So if you don't have access to it and you've been brainwashed to rape and suppress and oppress and create inequality and remove women's rights away, et cetera, then what you're doing is suppressing divine feminine, sacred feminine energy on this entire planet, which means you're preventing yourselves from healing and transforming and creating a better life and a better world. That's where we want to start with this topic.
Beautiful. So something that you actually sent to me recently was a beautiful video of a man reading out a script that he co-hosted this podcast with, and this lady was like, I want the man to read it because then maybe the message will get out. And obviously just that in itself is tragic, and it's really hard for, I think, men to understand what that means. Yeah. Because of the level of brainwashing that we've gone through. Now, when you first sent me that video, I watched it And I had to watch it multiple times because the first time I watched it, intuitively I knew that this was supposed to move me, but it didn't. And then I had to be like, I know I'm supposed to be feeling compassion, empathy, the tragedy of what I'm reading, but I couldn't actually feel it. And so then that led to like, why? And as I'm going in and I'm like, okay, let me listen to it again and let me open. It's just more layers and more layers of me seeing how I'm living with these blinders on. And it's completely unconscious that we as men have been brainwashed to be this way.
Yeah.
And all that does is it blocks us off, and we're not like, I know I knew in my core that I was supposed to feel like compassion and empathy, and it just wasn't there. And it wasn't, I'm on this path, I'm doing the work, and it's still there. Like there's still so deep layers to this.
Yeah.
And over the last few months, and I would say all year, there's been elements of this misogyny and the dehumanization, which has been coming up for me to see and heal. But I just wanted to share that so that any man listening to this, like they understand that there is such deep programming which causes us to dismiss, not listen to women, dismiss our pain, dismiss their pain. And that's our responsibility to heal. And the people who were doing this have done it really well.
Yeah.
And just really quickly, for those people who don't know what the video was about, it was about him reading basically what women have to go through, the unsafety that they feel around men. It's just a background so people understand what that was. Yeah.
Yeah. What women live with every single day, just moving through the world, going to the grocery store or going to a restaurant, or, taking your clothes to the dry cleaner. If you ever do that, it's like what women have to live through. And it isn't a victim consciousness. This is reality that we have created. It's time to wake up, right? It's time to wake up to our government removing our rights away and trying to enslave women more and more and more. Nobody has rights over my physical body but me. Nobody. I have rights. I'm a sovereign being. What I choose to do with my body is my choice. What I choose to do with my body. No one on this planet has a right to tell me what I can and cannot do with my body, especially when it comes to, sex and contraceptives, and whether I'm going to devote my life to getting pregnant, raising a child, giving birth. Like, you don't have a right to tell me what I can and cannot do in this lifetime. I'm a divine soul. I choose what I want to do in this lifetime, just like you do, right? And the removal of freedoms that we are seeing on a massive scale everywhere. And that's all freedoms. Freedom of speech, especially in this country, in the United States right now. We don't have freedom of speech. It's all a facade to tell you have freedom, that this is the land of the free. We don't have freedom. They take everything down. They ban things. When you speak the truth, the way of truth, one of the 20 universal ways of oneness, you're speaking universal truth. They remove your content. You don't have to be hateful. You don't have to be harmful. You don't have to be violent. You don't have to be a threat to anybody. They remove your content when you talk about not taking away the rights of women, the rights of all of us, freedom of speech and peaceful protesting. When you put up content, it is removed. It is banned. You are warned. It's taken down. This is what happens in a goddamn patriarchy. And the more that this is happening, the more people are being pitted against each other to fight each other, because then you won't rise up and raise your level of consciousness in order to realize what's really going on, that this is all orchestrated. And it's orchestrated especially against women, no matter what color you are or where you're from. It is orchestrated to enslave women and oppress women, remove their power as much as possible. Because if you are controlled, if you are suppressed, if you don't use your voice and you're quiet because you are shut up, or you're afraid to do anything, speak out and move about this world because you're going to get raped, attacked, whatever, or anybody who does that to you, Any men who do that, these violent, horrible things, aren't going to get in trouble anyway, most of them. That's the world that we live in. And the more that is happening, right there summarizes the spiritual war that we are actually in. Suppress feminine energy so no one can heal and transform. Listen to all humans, and especially men right now. You cannot heal any fucking thing in your life energetically without feminine energy. Period. End. That is a sacred truth. There is no such thing as you healing shit without feminine energy. Why do you think for centuries, no matter how many men who rule the world, no matter how many men, oh, I got all the solutions. I got the solutions. Let me be president. And another fucking old man be president. I have solutions. Let's change policies. You're not raising the level of consciousness because you can't, because you don't have access to the energetic frequencies that transform the negative, the trauma, the scary, the dark, the evil, the whatever. Feminine energy does that. Why do you think they want it removed from the goddamn planet in a patriarchal society? So elites can continue to reign and rule forever.
I mean, when you gave me that teaching the other day, I was like, I had to sit with that. I was like, that makes everything makes sense then when you said it like that. And recently I hopped on this. I did a stitch on TikTok of this man basically, patronizing women, saying, well, why don't we just have empowered women lead a war for 30 days? And my comment back to that stitch was, well, if empowered women were leading, there would be no war.
There'd be no war.
There would be no war. And most of the comments were good. And then there was one guy. He always gets triggered by my content. And you could just feel that he was so angry about the idea that women are the true leaders. And he was pasting all these articles about, well, when the queen did this, and it's like, women, and why do you say that women are more superior? And it's like, that's where people's mind immediately go into, is that if you say women are empowered and they're leaders, well, then men must be inferior. And then here comes all of their stuff that comes out. So I'd love for you to go into what happens to people when they hear that women are actually meant to be the true leaders of the world.
Well, first of all, it shows people's true colors, and especially men. And by the way, let me make something very clear. Misogyny isn't just men. Women are misogynistic too. Let's get real. Like, none of this bullshit, like you can't be racist if your skin color is darker than, get out of here. You are misogynistic too as a woman. There are women who are also sexist. Let's get that very clear. Okay. It shows people's true colors, and especially men, when they're like, well, if women rule, and if it's a matriarch, oh, there's your mistake. And that shows how you really think things should happen in this world of inequality, of superior and inferior. Because a matriarch is not a patriarch just with women being the fucking assholes, with women dominating, making men feel inferior and pathetic, and then men are going to be our slaves. What are you talking about? Isn't it amazing that in all of our brainwashing, that's where people's minds go, especially men? Men are so afraid of that because they're contributing to that being what this world is. They're afraid of that because they dominate, because they contribute to misogyny, because they contribute to inequality, because they contribute to them being superior to another whole group, half of the fucking world population. It doesn't even make any sense. They have no other, contrast to relate, and they're not healed enough to have the wisdom to understand. A matriarch is not a patriarch just with women being the fucking assholes and being in charge. A matriarch is a world and a system of oneness. How could it not be? When women are the creators and the bringers of life, you are not here for any other reason than a woman created you as an extension of her own body first. You were a part of her physical body, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. You were an extension. You were a clump of cells that was her body, an extension of. She grew you. She created life. She created all of the energies and the forces to allow you to grow and eventually become a little human, a baby. And then she birthed you into this world. A human being that has that level of power to take a formless, sacred soul, a divine soul, a divine energetic being, bring it into her own physical form, combine that energy with physical matter, and then cultivate and create a whole human life out of it, is nothing less than sacred. And when she births you from oneness, because she created you from oneness, that is a matriarch. She created you from oneness by combining different things together in a holy union. And she gave you physical life for your soul to experience in physical form, in human form. There is no such thing as separation in that. There is only oneness in that. That is what a matriarch is, a matriarchy is. It is an expression of how we come together in oneness and then cultivate a life, an experience, a human experience from oneness, of oneness, and then to maintain that oneness in everything that we do. A matriarch looks at the entire whole, what benefits all of us, while simultaneously honoring the individual as a unique individual, because we are all the same thing. We are all source. And that gets a little boring. So you know what allows us to not get so bored, as we are all the source creator of everything, of all that is? We incarnate as different beings, an extension of myself as source, as creator, as God. We incarnate as different beings, and then we get to celebrate each other's differences that are only temporary while you are here on this planet, living a very short period of time. We are here to celebrate our quote unquote divine separation. It is a temporary video game of let's be different and separate for a lifetime. This would be fun. And then we get to express our divinity through different ways, as an elephant, as a woman, as a horse, as a grasshopper, as a man. We get to experience that in oneness and take all of that information back to our original source, because that's what we are. So we are the same, and yet we are different. And in our differences, we are the same. That is a fucking matriarch. So anybody who's ignorant enough and quite honestly stupid enough to believe some bullshit, like women are here to dominate, they don't behave that way, do they? They're not the violent ones, are they? They're not so quick to violating, raping, murdering, strangling, getting in fights, punching each other out. Women don't have that knee-jerk reaction. They have the reaction to heal, to bring wisdom, to bring, that's what power is. So who are the real leaders? Yeah, sorry, I hate to break it to you. It's the women, awakened women of the world, because they have the expansiveness and the wisdom of oneness. And we are all here in oneness. And don't you dare let your measly little brainwashed human minds tell you that means that somehow one group of people are inferior, because it is bullshit. And that right there is patriarchal brainwashing that never comes from a system of oneness consciousness. It doesn't exist. In the truth of all things, it doesn't actually exist. We create it and we live out those realities. It doesn't mean it's truth.
There's a show that I started watching recently called Blood of Zeus on Netflix. And it's an anime, and it's a mix of like mythological stuff. And they tell this story about like Zeus and the gods, you know, coming down to earth and interfering and whatnot. And they portray the woman who is trying to take the throne from Zeus, his wife, as this toxic, crazy, and it's been really interesting to go, oh, look how they're portraying the wife of Zeus. Yep. Jealous because he was going down to earth and had a baby with the earth, and like all of this like programming that is in there, in TV, in plain sight, that probably, you know, like a couple of years ago, I never even would have batted an eyelid to.
Yeah.
But now it's like, I see it clear as day. Like, this is all part of one, I believe like the agenda of what they want us to believe, and two, it's just where we're at. Like, it's probably the people that wrote that, like, that's what they think of women, is that they're crazy, they get jealous. And obviously, yeah, that might happen, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about empowered, healed, awakened women who are here to be the leaders of this new earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I had this woman reach out to me when I had first posted about matriarchy, and she was giving an example of how her country was ruled by a woman, and it was more disastrous than when a man did. And what she couldn't understand was that it's two sides of the same coin, right? If you take someone that is unhealed and you put them in power, or a woman or man, they're going to still do this because it's the same programming. It's it's a product of the patriarchy. What she couldn't wrap her mind around was the fact that there actually exists awakened, healed, empowered women who are meant to be what we are all seeking for so much.
Absolutely.
And then there, obviously, this is what this podcast is about. There isn't that. And why? And then that goes back to, well, men are brainwashed to be monsters and women are brainwashed to be the slaves.
Yep.
And we as men have to awaken to the monsters that are inside of us.
Yep.
And that has been a very challenging journey for me that I'm continuously going into. And it's really difficult. I had some stuff come up this past week where I look back at the ways that I've shown up, especially towards women in the past. And the word that kept on coming up was like unforgivable. And the only way through this is to do the work. And that doesn't mean just, okay, I showed up terribly in the past, I just forgive myself and do what religion's taught us to do.
Yep.
What, you teach us to do is no, go through every single part of you that actually feels bad for what you did, that has actually caused harm. And when we as men are able to look at that and heal it and start to integrate that part of our shadow, then as you teach the way of forgiveness, which is there's nothing to forgive, we can arrive at that place. But what it feels like when I start looking at this stuff, when I see what I've done in the past, it's unforgivable. And then because I do this work, obviously I go into that and I'm working through the different layers. But unconsciously, what I used to do is turn a blind eye to it because I feel like what I've done is unforgivable. And so I'd love for you to just touch on that, speak on that, and give us a teaching there.
Yeah. So the first thing is, one of the things I opened with is patriarchy turns men into monsters. I want everybody to just take a moment and listen to those words. Patriarchy turns men into monsters because it fucking does. The innate true self is a divine being. That's the truth of what everyone deep inside, that's the truth of what we all are. If you are so unhealed and low level of consciousness and you're really brainwashed, you'll hear something like patriarchy turns men into monsters, and you'll get defensive and you'll start attacking, and your stupid fucking comments that just make you look like idiots. I don't say that in judgment. It's like, well, you see where this person functions at such a low level. They can't, like, okay, because you're not even hearing. Men should be infuriated and enraged at what patriarchy has brainwashed them to be, because it isn't anything to be fucking proud of. It is men are brainwashed and conditioned to be what is shameful, what is awful. That's why I say it. Patriarchy turns men into monsters, because it does. It's monstrous, the things that men do and the way that they treat women and how they treat Earth and the planet and animals and nature. It's fucking horrific. Women aren't off the hook, by the way, but we're not talking about that in this particular episode. So I just want to make that very clear. But that is what patriarchy does. Okay. And so when you realize that, when you begin to heal and awaken for real, and by the way, all the violence, hello, men, allow this part to sink in. Those of you who have been raped, has it been by other men? Those of you who've been beaten up, attacked, was it by other men? Don't you dare come in the comments and start telling, no, mine was a woman. You mean that 0.03% that exists? Get the fuck out of here. Let's start coming from actual truth here, right? Generally speaking, across the entire globe, the violent, scary people of the world are the men of the world. That's what patriarchy turns men into. And so when you realize you've been turned into that, that's not your true nature. No matter how horrific you've been, to what degree, that is never a human's true nature. It is never a boy's true nature, and it is never a man's true actual nature. But societal conditioning, patriarchal conditioning, grooms you and turns you into that. And so if you really let that sink in, like, holy shit, I've been brainwashed my entire life to be a shitty human, to be a shitty man, and what that even means. Holy crap, I should be enraged at the system in place that put that in place to begin with. And then how do we, number one, heal ourselves individually, connect to our divinity, and actually become a divine being in human form, right? And then how do I dismantle a system that creates monsters and enslaved beings and toxic people, men and women, right? I mean, again, women are not off the hook here, but we're not talking as much about that in this episode as we are understanding what patriarchy does to men, because the elites of the world, that's patriarchy. When everybody talks about the elites of the world, those crazy psychopaths that rule the world, almost all of them are men. Almost all of the Freemasons and the Illuminati and the Cabal, all of these groups that are the elites and the evil, dark systems of the world, almost all of them are made up completely of men. And there's a very tiny percentage of women that are involved in that. It doesn't mean those women are off the hook. It's just understanding the system. If you can't even understand and face the truth of what's happening, how the hell are you ever going to heal yourself, let alone help heal the stupid system in the world? You can't. You're too low. You're too brainwashed. You got to get out of it, right? And it is I'll give one more quick example. It's no different than a little child being raised in the KKK, for example, a little white child being raised in the KKK. They are completely brainwashed from the time they're in their mother's womb, for crying out loud. They come out and all they ever hear is all the stuff that they hear to brainwash them to be race. Their true nature, racism, doesn't exist. It doesn't even exist. We create it and then live it out, because the patriarchal society with all these psychopathic elites create these systems and put them in place from our entire lives so that we grow up in them. And as long as we hate each other and stay in suffering and fighting and war and violence and inequality and misogyny and race, all the things, they get to stay in power and they benefit from us being stupid fucking idiots, fighting and killing each other. They win all the time. They make more money off of that. They have all the power in the world. That's a patriarchal system. If we don't start to break that down and see it for what it actually is, no one can heal. Evil will reign on this planet. The spiritual war, darkness will win. And if men can't get out of their fucking pride, which is a very low vibrational frequency, that toxic masculine pride, and realize you've been duped, you've been abused, you have been mistreated and brainwashed too. You are one of the victims here. You're just told, brainwashed to believe that you're superior, so you think you're dominant, when you'll never heal that way because it is impossible energetically. That's what needs to be understood with this.
Yeah, and where that brings me to is religion. You know, we can talk about that. The kicker, Harrison, we like to call him Harrison Butler. We saw a video. It's funny. Okay, guys. But him talking about his Christian values and, you know, his messaging to men is stop letting them emasculate you. Women should be homemakers in the kitchen. And it's like, and I'm also seeing this rise in people going back to Catholicism, going back to Christianity, going back to need all these things. So I'd love for you to go into how patriarchy has created religion to also enslave us and create monsters.
That you just said it right there. I mean, it's nothing but a satanic cult. People are going to get real fucking triggered hearing that. You want the truth? Here we go. Strap in, because the major religions of the world, they are the satanic cults of the world. They're the cults, right? They're the cults. And my dog is having a sneezing attack behind me, in case you can hear that. He's validating what I'm saying right now. They are cults. Anybody who can brainwash and first of all, when it is made up of like only men, you know, pick the religion, Christianity, and then Catholicism under that, and other religions under that. They're made up of it's all patriarchy, period, end. It just is. That's patriarchy. And so, of course, they're going to brainwash Christian values. Well, fuck that. Get out of here with that. What do you mean value? You can't call it a value. Sexism isn't a value. Inequality and domination and enslaving women and seeing them only as objects and only as baby makers that you're to control. What are you talking about? And this is taught in religion, and religion is supposed to be holy. It is the opposite of holy. It is the opposite of holy. Because when you think about this, if I describe a ceremony where a man is tortured, bloody, disgusting, like your worst horror film, tortured, and then sacrificed, murdered, and then his flesh is eaten, and then his blood, they drink it. Okay? And that's what I'm describing. Wouldn't you immediately picture some demonic ritual or some satanic ritual? They're sacrificing a human, drinking their blood. That's a satanic ritual. That's funny. You guys do that every fucking Sunday in church. You have statues of Jesus, bloodied, tortured, dying on a cross, and you have been brainwashed to believe it's okay to view him like that. That's what you're worshiping. And then you symbolize energetically drinking of his blood and eating his flesh, the blood of Christ, the body of Christ. And you're so brainwashed, you think that's a holy ritual. Oh my God. Why are you not showing pictures of him, I don't know, maybe sitting on a throne or walking through the land holding the sheep that he helped to save, or a dog that he healed who was being abused and injured by somebody? Why don't you show him for what he was and not trick people in the upside down world with your cult bullshit religion to trick people into energetically putting all of their life force energy into reliving the torture and murder of a holy man? And then symbolizing holiness doesn't eat flesh and drink blood. Are we awakening for real yet, people? Hello. That's the biggest cult that exists, and those are the elites. The religion, Christianity, those are the elites. And it's all part of the brainwashing. And for anybody to buy into any of that crap and not wake up for real, you're destroying our planet. There's the spiritual war, is whether people are going to wake up for real and learn how to honor one another and heal from all of this trauma, all of this brainwashing trauma. Are we going to choose to do that for real and learn how to love and honor one another and stop being fucking sexist and taking rights away from half the population of the world? Are we going to learn how to elevate into 20 universal ways of oneness, become those energetic frequencies, see that skin color, if you're arguing over the color of your skin, I'm embarrassed for you. It is so stupid and so low. I'm actually embarrassed for you that this is still a fight, that people are brainwashed enough to function at such low levels and hate each other over what skin tone you have. We're all the same race, you idiots. We're the same race. So we have a lot of work to do. Warriors, where are you at? Where are you at, warriors? I want to hear you in the comments, truly. Where are you at? You ready to become healed and whole and live as holy beings? That's not a religious definition, religion or cults. I don't do cults. I break people free from them. It's time to live in oneness and learn what that actually means. It's time to join the goddamn revolution and start healing each other and supporting each other in our healing. That men, women, children, it's time to love one another and support one another in our healing. And that means facing our monsters. And that means facing the system that created all of us as different versions of toxic behavior and monsters that we are. It's time to elevate out of that. We can't do that by still living in separation and hate and superiority bullshit. No more domination. That's patriarchy. It's time for oneness, and that's the matriarchy.
Yeah, I was listening to this beautiful song yesterday, and one of the lyrics was, may religion be swept at the revelation of what we are. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it just hit so deep. And, also to the Bible. People think that we're brainwashed to believe that Jesus wrote the Bible. And my entire religious upbringing, like, there was never talk about women. It was always men, 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 and women are the concubines, and they're the prostitutes, and they're this and they're that. And people just resort to that constantly. Well, the Bible says this, and well, the Bible says that, and that's truth. And not understanding, knowing, like, no, that's all part of the agenda too, of like how they wrote that. She can't tell them that. Yeah.
And rewritten and rewritten and revised and taken out and rewritten. That's all it is. And people act like it's this, sacred text that everyone should follow. I'm not following a sexist, misogynistic domination hierarchy of, patriarchal bullshit that you want because you feel so inferior to the power of woman that you had to try to create an entire system, an entire world to suppress her, oppress her, and enslave her because you feel inferior. You realize the people that dominate are the ones that carry the biggest programs of inferiority, which is why they act out behaviorally as superior. So men need to heal their inferiority complex, not a superiority complex. It's an inferiority complex. Because that's what patriarchy does to you. You have people that are unhealed, men that are really misogynistic. You are so acting out inferiority that it is palpable. It is the energy is disgusting. I'm not saying that in judgment. That's the energy. The frequencies are gross because you feel so inferior. That's the inferiority complex that you have to act out and dominate those that you feel energetically, something in you feels like they're more powerful than you. If you didn't feel that way, you wouldn't try to dominate or conquer over them. What are you here to conquer? I mean, let that sink in.
And that's the energy that we've seen, throughout the West, this conquering, as someone from the UK, the British Empire just tried to conquer the world. We had the Spanish Inquisition, them going around. And I learned about recently, the coming out to America, the reason was to just eradicate all North American people because of the way that they lived their life. It had just nothing to do with what they were being led to believe, and just the brutality of that mentality that we're here to just take, to conquer. The old Viking way was what, rape and pillage. It's just absolutely barbaric.
Yes.
And that still happens, just not in the same way anymore. Right? It's still happening energetically. You look at the wars around the world, and I'm sure we can still tell it's still happening. That energy's still there. It's not gone away. It might look a little different, but it's still there, and it's happening today.
You got it. And it's the patriarchy, the reason why you see all that, the conquering, the domination, because you're removing and you're denying feminine energy. Because people today, when you even say feminine energy, they think, oh, I don't want to be effeminate. That behavior and characteristics in your personality have nothing to do with feminine energy. People still to this day don't have the slightest clue what feminine means and what masculine even means. The slightest clue. And there's still this level of resistance to even learning the highest spiritual teachings of what these things are. Feminine energy is nature, period. Because it is the life cycle, the creation of all life. That is what feminine energy is. It is the creator of all life. That's feminine energy. And when you have that sacred wisdom, the way of wisdom, nature, you learn from nature because she is the way of wisdom. It's already built into the system. You're not here to be separate from that system. You're here to be included into that system in oneness. So the conquering of the land, the destroying of this, the raping of our Earth's land, because that's what we do. We destroy it. A third of the land in this world, on this planet, has gone through, we have created desertification. And that means we have taken beautiful, rich ecosystems of soil that is perfect. Nature provides for us the ability to grow our food, to nourish us, and allow us to live and thrive and be healed from it. And then patriarchal society comes in and rapes and pillages and destroys the land using chemicals and only one type of food source, and only corn can grow here and only barley can grow there, whatever. We destroyed the land. 1/3 of this planet's land is dust, dirt, can't do shit with it. And when you plant crops there, you need more pesticides and more chemicals. We're destroying everything. That's patriarchy. Matriarchy is oneness. That means nature thrives and nature teaches us. Nature teaches us what ecosystem needs to be created here, honored here. And that means all of the different plants. And even when you plant your own garden, you don't plant one goddamn crop. You have to plant a whole bunch of ones that go together, all of the different herbs that go together to keep all the different pests away. It's learning the system of nature. And that is feminine energy. It's what creates and sustains life is feminine energy. It isn't masculine energy, doesn't do that. And then for those of you, well, what does masculine energy do? You're still in your patriarchy bullshit brainwash. I want to know how important I am and how special I am. Get the fuck out of that. That's got to go. You need to let it go, and you need to be open enough, become the way of presence to learn what is drastically missing from this planet and every human being, including women. Not just because you're a woman doesn't mean you are divinely connected to sacred feminine energy. There are so many women that are nothing but toxic masculine, and a big part of the problem. Remember, I said earlier several times now, women are not excluded. It's understanding this to where you can break it down so that you can heal it within yourself, and then you can heal it within the world. Right? So that's where we want to get to, is understand the real elevated teaching so we can actually create change with all of us, for all of us, to elevate and heal ourselves together. We are an aspect of nature, but we've so alienated ourselves from that because that's what patriarchy does. Whereas nature, oneness, matriarchy, all the same thing. It's time to come back to nature because we are nature. We have to express nature through us. And that means allowing feminine energy to first come in and heal us by accessing the feminine that we are inside. That is a divine, sacred, energetic frequency. It's not a vagina, people. Learn the difference. Learn the difference.
And then we can often take that, the conditioning that we've learned, and bring it into our healing journey, because this is what I was doing before I met you. And, it still shows up, certain programs and wounds. But the cold showers, breath work, the constant forcing, the lack of patience that it has to happen now, and this linear, it's got to go all the way to the end.
Yes.
And it doesn't work. And I'm sure if you've been on this journey, you've tried those things, you've been in that energy, the toxic energy, which doesn't heal anything.
Nope.
You can't just jump in a bunch of cold water and breathe really heavily and it will transform all of your trauma. It just doesn't work. I tried it, and feel free to go out there and try it. And when you're sick of it not working, come back and learn the ways of oneness. And learning that has really shifted things for me. It opens the door when we start to open ourselves internally because both of these energies live within us. As you teach, right? It's not that, I'm a man, so it's masculine energy, and you're a woman, so it's feminine. It's that we have the capacity to have both of these energies integrated, and that balance might look different for each and every one of us.
Yes.
But as men and humans on this earth, if we completely disconnect from the feminine energy, we remain very trapped, very stuck, and that's not a great place to live. It creates a lot of suffering, a lot of disease, and a lack of harmony.
Yeah. And the way of harmony is the 20th way of oneness.
Yeah. And, I'd love to dive in a little bit too, Rachel, I think that when I look at the world and I witness the world, even in our own organization, me and Danny talk about this a lot about it's a lot of women. It's a lot of women who are doing the work, and it doesn't mean that there aren't men coming in and
Right.
doing it. And definitely, like anytime I get to have a conversation with a man, or sometimes when I see comments, and there's that openness, there's that willingness, there's that wanting to, like, I don't want to be. I remember this one DM that you got of this man. He's like, I want to change. I don't want to be what I've been all my entire
Yeah.
life. Like, he can see the ugly, he can see the damage and all of these
Yeah.
things. And so that just gives me it's really exciting and like so
Yeah.
beautiful. But for you to dive into, how do you see the shift happening amongst us, and can you feel it now?
Yeah, I think so. The challenging, painful part of healing is anybody that's familiar with the work that I teach and the work that is offered from all of our amazing coaches, men and women, at Masters of Self University, is the painful part is everything ugly has to come to the surface. Okay, you're not just waving a magic wand and saying disappear, poof, you're gone. Why? You didn't learn anything from that. That's why. Which means all you'll do is repeat it again. Cycles will repeat. Why do you think we've been trapped in these cycles with these horrible people that run the world behind the scenes, the elites, all of the massive cults that are in the form of religion? Like, why do you think this all exists? Because we are not actually alchemizing and transforming for real. We give a bunch of quick solutions. Again, that's masculine energy. And when you lack the balance of feminine, and that doesn't mean 50-50. When you lack the balance of feminine energy, which is sacred wisdom, which is transformational healing, alchemy, you don't get anywhere. It's more of the same. It looks different. It doesn't mean change doesn't happen. Elevation doesn't happen. You see the difference? It looks different, but vibrationally, energetically, it isn't different. So what I see is the acuteness of all of the ugliest of the ugly, the darkest of the dark, is coming to the surface for transmutation. And I see that because humans are waking up for real. You can't wake up for real and deny feminine energy, healing energy, or you're not waking up for real. I don't care how spiritual you are or how spiritual you like to claim to be. It doesn't mean anything just because you want it to be. I'm so spiritual now. How much feminine energy do you have access to? And can you feel the difference in energetics? Can you feel the different energies flowing through you at any given time? Right? The way of wisdom teaches you how to work with energetics on that level. So with all of the darkness and the evil and the Hollywood, what's going on in Hollywood, what's going on those levels, what's going on in our government, and not just in our country, like what's going on all over the place, means that people are waking up, and it means feminine energy is beginning to flood the planet, because that's pure, raw, divine power. And when you're connected to your pure, raw, divine power, you are no longer going to be held back by the fear of your pain or what could happen, right? Those are our wounds and the brainwashing of being powerlessness and all of those things. So when you're connected to those frequencies of oneness consciousness, you're allowing the feminine energetics, the feminine frequencies to come in and do what they have always done, which is heal, elevate, transform, provide wisdom. And when you learn and understand what's happening along the way, along your awakening journey, you're gaining the wisdom, you're integrating that. And then that means you're becoming the way of wisdom, which means you know what else to produce, what the planet needs most from everybody. You want to heal trauma, learn how to connect to energetic frequencies that can heal trauma and become those frequencies. And the predominant part of those frequencies of all the ways of oneness are feminine energy. And once you get to a place, if you can get to a place where you are so elevated and you are becoming enlightened, you realize even to say feminine and masculine is so ridiculous. And that goes away too. And it doesn't mean women don't exist and men don't exist. But those energies right now, if you don't, you have to start somewhere. You have to invite the feminine back in. But at some point in enlightenment, it's ridiculous to call any of it feminine or masculine. But we can't get to that place if we don't first see what's happening, be honest about it, allow it to come to the surface, embrace it, embrace the monsters that we are, that we've become, our shadow selves, our ugly selves, our shameful parts of us, alchemize with feminine energy, elevate to a more healed, powerful, loving, divine being, and then rinse and repeat.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So to anyone out there, book a free consultation with us. We have group classes. We do one-on-one coaching at mastersofselfuniversity.com. That's where you can learn so much more about our programs. We have a free Discord community that you can also join, where we all gather to talk through and work through everything that we're moving through in these very, very crazy, beautiful times. And check out Rachel's book, The 20 Universal Ways of Oneness, Mason's Way. It is on Amazon right now. And please share this episode for anyone who needs to hear this, who are open to all of this, because this is really where it all begins. And subscribe. And is there something you want to say?
I just want to say, especially with the man in this world, like, we really need to hear this. We really need to get out of the brainwashing and to understand that it is within our power to start to transform this world. And, you know, a lot of the conditioning out there is to just give away our power, to give it away to the government, to give it away to our parents. And this is just what we've been conditioned to be. But when we choose to actually heal, to elevate and evolve and say, you know what, I do see the violence that's out there, and let me take some accountability for where I've been part of that, or maybe where I hold my tongue or I don't step up as a leader and as a man. And so I just think it's so important that this message gets out to everyone, but especially the men out there, and the men out there that are doing the work, so they can further understand the deeper programs that are running here and the uphill battle that we're facing. This is, you know, the brainwashing, the conditioning, it's all done very purposefully to keep us, as Rachel said, like, men as monsters and women as slaves. And we have to choose, we have to make that choice to find our power and elevate out of it, because no one else will do it for us. So share this with a man who's really ready to evolve, and understand on a deeper level what the fuck is happening in the world, because it is crazy. And it's hard to see when you don't have a leader like you, Rachel, who is shining the light, allowing like us to see it, because that's the point of the brainwashing, is you don't see it. So I'm so grateful that you're doing what you're doing. I'm so grateful to follow you and to learn from you. And I hope that this reaches as many men and women as possible, because it's so important for our evolution as a collective, as a humanity, and as our individual souls. That's why we came down here, especially at this time.
Especially at this time, to heal all that trauma that we cause to our souls, and we don't even know that we're doing it. And that's why, you know, at Masters of Self University, healing at the soul level, you know, that's one of our slogans. We heal at the soul level. That is what we do. And that means you have to be willing to elevate out of the psychotic human nonsense that has been our realities for so long, in order to actually create heaven on earth. You cannot create heaven on earth if you don't create heaven within yourself first. And if you have any programs of domination, you know, superiority, inequality, violence, you know, anything like that, if you're warring within yourself, you're creating war within the world. That's what we're here to heal, and to offer these elevated spiritual teachings that, by the way, the elites have kept all of this information for only themselves, and they pass it down to only their groups of people. That's why they've been able to remain in power. So the more that we're down here scrambling, running around, fighting each other all the time, you're playing your puppets. You're playing into the hands of the elites, because they have the wisdom. They've dispersed and made sure the wisdom has been removed from the collective, so that they're the only ones that hold it. You have to understand that. So if we're scrambling and it takes a whole lifetime to get a clue, we'll never heal enough and elevate enough in our levels of consciousness in order to flip things around and remove all these psychopathic elites from power and actually create a world that is a world of oneness, a world of harmony, a world of equality and compassion and harmlessness and gentleness and every way of oneness. That can't happen if you can't stop the war within yourself, stop warring and fighting other groups of people. Wake up to what they've turned you into. That's where we change this world, and we start by changing ourselves. So this is what we do at Masters of Self University. Go visit our website and get a free consultation. It's time. It's time to rise.
Sure is. And I'll end it with this. As a woman, I have seen programs of misogyny in me, and it took me back. And I was like, whoa, because how can it not? How can we all not have it when we're under the rule of patriarchy? So for all the women out there too, do the work, because it'll be in your blind spots. And when you see it, heal it so that we can help become the change.
Love it. Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Rachel. Until next time, we'll see you guys then. Bye.
Bye, everybody.